Welcome back to Giddy Up. Time to catch up with Dean Evans from Winning Edge Investments as we preview the Group 1s over the weekend. Dean, good morning to you. What about Caulfield's meeting? It's one of my favourite days on the racing calendar and can't wait for Saturday at the Heath.
Yeah, good morning, Gareth. And we've got three Group 1s at Caulfield. A pretty stellar lineup in the Might and Power. Looks like the vast majority of the Cox Plate field is there. We've got the Toorak, where there's a couple of horses probably auditioning for a potential Cox Plate position there as well, and then the $3 million Caulfield Guineas, which is a capacity field.
Now, rain predicted on Thursday and Friday, maybe a little bit on Saturday. So I think they're probably thinking at the MRC it might be around the soft 5, soft 6 rating as we speak on a Thursday morning, but there's a lot can happen and the weather report can be wrong from time to time, Dino. So it's just a little bit of watch this space. But let's have a look at the Might and Power Group 1, like it's the Midi Cox Plate, really, isn't it? You've got Adamo taking on Zaki. I'm Thunderstruck, Alligator Blood, Mr. Brightside, Mwanga. No, he's taken on Mwanga, but Mr. Brightside for the first time. So you have a look at the mark. You got Zaki at $5. I'm Thunderstruck 6. Alligator Blood at 6, Mr. Brightside at $16, Mwanga at 12, Nonconformist at 71, Anamo's at $2.40, and then Benno's at $26. How do you analyse this year's Might and Power?
Yeah, look, it's interesting how it sort of all played out this year. We've got all 6 runners in the Underwood backing up again here 2 weeks later, and then they go 2 weeks into the Cox Plate. Then you throw Animo obviously in the mix, plus Benno, who had the little issue last week where he couldn't run in the Metrop, so he's come down to Melbourne. Animo has been pretty impressive in both his wins this prep, with J-Mac aboard, beating Fangirl and Ice Bar in the Winks and the George Main. That form hasn't totally held up. Obviously we know how good Animo is, but Ice Bath and Hinge were both pretty ordinary in the Epsom handicap, to be fair, and Fangirl sort of hasn't kicked on with the tracks being wet. My other concern with Animo is, it's always with whiskey taking on, sort of a horse at $2.30 who's sort of lame 3 out of 5 at its last start. So there's a few risks there with Animo at that sort of $2.30 mark. I thought out of the Underwood, the big improver really was Zaki. I think he was only second up there. And the key with Zaki really is, getting into full fitness and then, really being aggressive in riding him. And I think Jamie was a bit soft on him, probably because, he's still a month away from his peak run and his key target, which is the Cox Plate. And they sort of went, minus 7.4 for the first section. So it was very slow, and that just doesn't suit Zaki. He's not a fit sprinting type of leader. And that suited Alligator Blood. He's more a grind them into the dirt type horse. And so, if Zaki, if they feel that he's really come on in fitness from that run, and they're wanting to push him in this race, and that's always a question when they're the real target's in 2 weeks' time. But I think we'll tell early. But if Jamie Carr's really aggressive and pushes to lead Alligator Blood, and they go at a strong tempo, then I think Zaki will be ready and will be very, very hard to beat. If they sort of go at a jog trot again, I think the race is open, but it may make it hard for even the likes of Animo and Thunderstruck to come from the back. I thought, all things being equal on the sectionals and the run, that the best run in the Underwood was Mwanga, from the sectional perspective. He sort of finished home really strongly. It was plus 4.7 for the last 600. And it was just a very strong all-round performance. So I do have Zaki as the one to beat. It's only 2 weeks from the grand final. He should be ready to rock. And, if they're aggressive and they lead Alligator Blood, then I don't think Alligator Blood will run past him. I think I'm Thunderstruck will get out the back, and, he's still a question mark at 2,000. And I think sort of Moang is the sneaky one who was such a good run in the Underwood that you take that on face value, and he can run another big race here.
I guess, as you just pointed out, tactics will play a big part in this year's Might and Power. Just quickly then, Dino, if the rain does come, who does it suit better? Is it Zaki and Animo that get the big favours there over their rivals?
Look, Animo's proven he can handle a wet track, and Zaki, it was an absolute quagmire when he ran second in the Queen Elizabeth. and he's won the Hollindale and Tramway on heavy 10. So I do think they're suited the best. I think horses like sort of Iron Thunderstruck and Alligator Blood, they can kind of get through it, but it's definitely not their preferred conditions. So I sort of think Zaki and Animo are probably the best favoured with a bit of rain.
There's a really strong possibility that the Cox Plate winner comes out of the Mighty Power, but some say that the Cox Plate winner this year might come out of the Toorak with I Wish I Win, the 270 favourite for the Great Mile race over the 1,600 metres. Call sign Mav looking for back-to-back Group 1s at Caulfield at 26. Converge 31, Dalasan 29 with Bet365. Laws of Indices at 23. Hilal at 23. Buffalo River at 29. Tuvalu at 8.50. Gentleman Roy at $9. Banker's Choice 41. Military Expert at 9. No Name Lane at $34. Pinstriped out to $13. Character 19. Uncle Bryn at 15 and Winning Partner at $81. How do you see this race? Many say, Dino, that I Wish I Win's nearly the lock for your multis and your best bet over the weekend with the way that he's been going under the care of Peter Moody.
Yeah, look, he's been very impressive. Both of his 2 runs in Australia. He was Group 1 placed in New Zealand. He's grown a leg since he came over here. He ran plus 9.4 for the last 800 in his first up run, which is the clear quickest of the day. And he ran plus 7 for the last 800 last start, and that was the second quickest of the day. And he found some trouble as well. So he was visually very impressive. He sort of blew Ayrton out of the water. And Ayrton's a pretty handy horse. So he's reasonably well weighted here at 54.5, and it's certainly not a peak sort of 2-rack. So I Wish I Win certainly rates clearly on top, and I've got a mark sort of $2.50, and he does look the one to beat. I thought the horses that can improve sharply were firstly Converge. He's a horse that last prep beat Animo fair and square over a mile at set weights in the Randwick Guineas, and since then all his copters for basically bog heavy sort of tracks. So he's coming to Caulfield looking for a dry track. It's obviously going to come down to how bad it gets, but I think a soft 5 is perfectly fine for him. And I'm surprised he's sort of $31 for a horse who I think he just will line out of his last sort of 4 starts on those bog heavy tracks. And a good one whenever Animo rates very, very highly in a race like this. The horses up in the weights traditionally in this race too have an extremely good record in the Tour. Horses above 56.5 kgs and above won 6 out of 37, whereas under 56 kgs only 5 winners from 142 runners. So the class usually comes to the top in a race like this. So Converge at $31 is huge odds, and I thought the other big odds is Laws of Indices, who's had some big runs. He's only beaten 1.6 lengths in the George Rider, only beaten 2.5 lengths in the Golden Eagle. He was beaten 2 lengths in the Sir Rupert Clarke first up, but he was first up, and a few of the others were sort of second up, third up, and wound up. He's the one with the biggest improvement, and it's notable that James McDonald has jumped aboard Laws of Indices. So, I Wish I Win certainly rates on top. But if you're wanting to sort of play a few big odds and save on I Wish I Win, I think it Converge at $31, Laws of Indices at sort of $23, and maybe Pinstripe at $13. You could back and just save on I Wish I Win as an alternative.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race to track, and especially if I Wish I Win can make a statement, then he might be the second or third favourite for the WS Cox Plate come Saturday night. We'll take a quick break, Dino, with Dean Evans here with Winning Edge Investments. On the other side of it, we'll come back and take a look at the feature 3-year-old event, the Caulfield Guineas. Welcome back to Giddy Up. We're with Dean Evans from Winning Edge Investments here on this Thursday morning. Let's have a look at the Caulfield Guineas, the highlight race there at Caulfield on Saturday, and it's a terrific contest once again for the 3-year-olds. Tier 1 are at $9 with Bet365. Barclay Square $5. Golden Mile at $2.70. And then we go down to horses like Elliptical at $17, Amendable at $15, and you got Meritus at $19, and Bankmore, despite the gate, is at $19 as well. Golden Mile, I guess the big question, Dino, is whether he'll get a strong mile.
Yeah, that is the key question. It's certainly not a vintage Caulfield Guineas. I think it's, Alf Cabin sort of going a miss, plus Jack and O switching to the Everest. They've sort of taken the two premier horses out and in secret heading down the Phillies path. So sort of the best horses aren't really here. Traditionally, you've been looking for a horse off sort of that 2-week break off, potentially a Golden Rose or a Guineas Prelude. 8 of the last 11 winners have been a black type winner or a Group 1 place as a 2-year-old. But there's really only a couple of horses that actually qualify for that. Tijuana and Mullane are the only sort of qualifiers there. Previously, having a run over sort of 1,500 metres plus has been a positive, but again, there aren't too many in the field that have sort of done that. I think Golden Mile is the one to beat, but you're right. It was very impressive when he won the Ming Dynasty. He ran plus 6.7 the last 800, which was second quickest of the day. And then he was sort of solid boxing on the Golden Rose, beating 1.6 lengths. But he was on speed, and they ran plus 2.7 for the first 600. So I thought that was a solid run. He was the one to beat. Berkeley Square has been very impressive in his last 2 wins, running very nice closing sectionals. But he comes off a 28-day break, which is a negative here. None of the last 11 winners have come off a break that long. You got Tijuana, who's been tough on pace for the State win. Mullane, who had a checkered run in the Golden Rose and was only beaten 4 lengths. I think he'd be more seasoned for that run and has some hope. And, Minimal was quite good, finishing very strong with the third behind Alf Cabin. But it's a tricky race, to be honest, Gareth. There's not one I can really stare directly into. I just think they've all got question marks over them, and the market's probably about right with Golden Mile favourite, Berkeley Square second favourites, but from a historical profiling perspective and a class and ratings perspective, I can't really confidently want to dive into anything here other than I think it's going to be a very slow speed, and so I do think that's going to favour Golden Mile and probably Tijuana among the others, because they're just going to sit on this very slow speed and probably be hard to run down.
And in Sydney, the Silver Eagles, the feature, who knows what's going to happen there. 100 mils predicted and a lot of rain predicted, around 40 mils on the Saturday at Randwick. So you got Mr. Mozart, who's drawn the car park at $4, Startontes at $8.50, Valana at $9, and then Waterford at $8.50, Lavish Girl at $11, and Espiona that probably needs a dry track at $10. So is this anyone's guess as well?
Yeah, like you say, if they run it all, it'll be an interesting race. One interesting piece on the profile in this race has only been around 3 years, but mares have run really well in the first year. There were 3 mares around second, third, and fourth. And the next year, Flit won. Last year there was only 1 mare, and it was Angelic, and probably could have won, but got chopped out in the straight and was pulled up. So mares have a great record in this race, and just looking through the field, the class horse by a very long way, in my opinion, is Startontes. She was only beaten the nose in a Group 1 at Randwick over this distance in the Surround Stakes as a 3-year-old. She then came out and won the Tats Tiara, beating Snap Dancer, which has proven pretty strong form, with Snap Dancer winning a Group 1 this prep and going to the Everest. If you watch the replays of Startonte's last 2 runs, this prep just hasn't got clear. Still ran the second quickest last 400 and fifth quickest last 800 of all runners on the day first up, and then was just really badly held up in the Golden Pendant. But despite being beaten 4 lengths, was actually the quickest last 600 to 200 metres sectional of the day. So Startontes is absolutely flying. She loves the wet. She goes well at Randwick. And I've got her sort of clearly on top, so she's a nice price at sort of $8.50. And I think the question is, if the races do run, and it's one of those Randwick tracks that we did see in the autumn where it's just so wet that it's really hard for them to make ground, then probably the danger is the Lavish Girl, who I think is the strongest of the on paces, is fit from its first up second, has very nice form lines, being the likes of Argentia and Yearning last prep over 400 metres and jumped out really well before its first up run, beating I Am Superman, who then ran a place in the Group 1. So I think I've got Startontes on top, and Lavish Girl as the danger, and hopefully we get through the meeting unscathed.
Good on you, Dean. I love you working for the SEN listeners. Just head to Winning Edge Investments. You type in SEN and you get a free, well, not free, 50% off your membership for the rest of your life. So you're back to winner already. You're a good man, Dino. Enjoy the weekend, mate. And we'll catch up with you next week as we get ready to preview the Everest and also Caulfield Cup Day.
Yeah, it just keeps getting better, Gareth. So looking forward to it, and chat to you next week.